And yeah, so today's session, ascending triangle, we're going to be going through that. Once we complete all of the patterns, again, they'll be uploaded to the YouTube channel. And then we're just going to go into, market analysis through patterns. So we can be using Monara or just TradingView. We can just look for patterns on there. Perfect, guys. So like I said, we're going to be looking at the ascending triangle today. More specifically, we're going to be looking at the bullish continuation of this pattern, okay? So with the ascending triangle, it consists of a horizontal resistance line, okay? So this is just this top line right here, which connects the highs of the pattern, okay? And to form that pattern right there. And then it also has an ascending trend line support as well. So if you can see right here, we're looking at these various higher lows. So continuing upward on this trajectory. So once we've established these two, so the resistance, again, horizontal line, keeping that price from pushing out of there, and then we keep that consistency of the price pushing up through this support line. This just confirms that it's a bullish trend, okay? So the buyers are in demand and the buyers are pushing that price up, okay? And then this comes to those 2 points meeting at the apex, okay? So at this point right here. So in order for the pattern to be valid, it must meet certain criteria, okay? So on all the patterns, there'll be certain criteria that needs to be met. For the ascending triangle more specifically, the first thing being the resistance line, so that's this top line right here, it must be tested at least twice, okay? What that means is price has come up to this area of this resistance and rejected off of this area, okay, and bounced off. So this could be in the form of, so I'm just going to explain it in a bit more detail because I know the lines can sometimes be a bit confusing. This could be in the form of a candle, right? A candle wick, right? Let's say a candle pushes past this point, right? But it doesn't close past this point. It could just close directly underneath this resistance, okay? That would be classified as this resistance being tested, okay? Because price hasn't closed past it, it's just wicked it. And then again, vice versa, with the next one being that the ascending trend line, support line, that must be tested at least 3 times, okay, for the pattern to be valid. So again, once price comes down, it needs to reject off of this point. It needs to do that 3 times, okay? So when you're drawing up these lines, let's say, for example, I had a question last week where somebody asked me, how do we identify these patterns as they are forming, okay? So let's say, for example, we did have this continuation upwards. Let's say we've seen the first 2 of these higher lows, right? We could then draw that support line, right? That support trend line, that ascending trend line. And then we only seen one of these. We could then draw that resistance because we know once we see that second one, for the second test for the resistance and the third test for the support, we are then looking for that breakout, right? So that's one way that you can do this. You can preempt the lines, right? If the lines are broken, let's say, for example, it didn't do the third test, it completely fell through, that's fine because we haven't entered a trade. What we're doing is we're just preparing ourselves. We're drawing up these lines, right? We're making sure that we're putting ourselves in a good position to identify the pattern, first of all, identify that the pattern is valid, and then we can, look for that most important breakout and then potentially look for a retest to enter into this, okay? So again, we need the resistance to be tested twice, the support to be tested 3 times, okay? And again, in order to validate the pattern, we do need these. Okay, so specifically, again, with the bullish continuation, we're looking for that uptrend, okay, before establishing this ascending triangle, okay? that just gives you like a full confirmation, that gives you a better percentage probability, okay, for this trade to play out. So like I mentioned, when price does break above the resistance, it does indicate that momentum to the upside, it can continue. Okay, so because we're already in an upward trend, once we establish that breakout, we can then look for an entry at that point. Okay, so again, like I said, we can look to enter on that high volume breakout. However, entering on a high volume breakout just means that you won't get the specific price that you enter on, because it is, a peak in that volume. It does spike. So what you want to do ideally is you do want to wait for that retest, right? That could be, 15-minute retest. One thing that I've noticed recently, guys, is if you're looking at key levels, a few of our educators, for example, Devon Satnam, they do point this out quite a lot. The key levels, if you look at key levels, right, and I've noticed this quite recently, you'll see just under, depending on, what trend you're in. Let's take, for example, an upward trend. Just under the key level, on majority of the key levels, you'll see an accumulation of price, a range, right? So this is not exactly a range, because we are sort of moving upwards slowly. But you'll see the price, it will condense, right? So this is like condensing into this apex, right? And then you'll see a breakout. So what I'm trying to point out is, let's say if you've already got your key level set on whichever chart it is, it could be a Euro USD or gold. I know a lot of us like to trade gold. Once you've got your key level set, let's say you have an inclination, or you spot a pattern forming. If it's just under a key level, it's a really good sign, because once it breaks the pattern and the key level at the same time on a a higher time frame, so like 4 hours, a 4-hour time frame, we can then look for that closure of that 4-hour candle, and then look for the 15-minute retest on this pattern to be able to take that to the upside. Okay, so that's one thing that I want everybody to keep in mind. When we're looking for these patterns, we can also integrate, key levels as well into this. So when we're looking to place our stop loss, we do place that below the recent swing low. So for example, it would be the third testing point for this ascending support trend line. So we place that there, and then to establish the take profit, the target profit, what we're doing is we're measuring from the lowest point of the support all the way up to the resistance. Then we can take that and project that from the breakout point from our entry, and that's when we can set our take profit, guys. Do we have any questions so far? I see someone already put it makes sense. I'm really happy that it makes sense. Do we have any questions so far? I know I have gone through that quite quickly. If there's no questions so far, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go on to the charts just to show everyone quick examples as well. I have marked up a few examples this time just to save us some time. So I'm just going to quickly go on to that. Right, so I believe, so I just noted them down as well. So I've got NZD USD. So I'm going to test everybody's knowledge on this one. Let's quickly have a look. Okay, so it's 11th. Let me change that to, might help if I wasn't on the 5-minute time frame. Okay, so this here, I want to show everybody this. Okay, let's drop to the hour. So I want to get everybody's thoughts on this sort of like markup right here. What does everybody think to this? Do we think that that's valid? If I pull this out here, do we think that that's valid? Would we use that? Would we use that pattern? Would we trade this pattern? You would trade that pattern. Okay, that's surprising. We do have the two testing points of the resistance. For the resistance, we don't have the 3 testing points for the. I mean, you could use this as the 3. So 1, 2, 3. However, it is quite messy, so I wouldn't really use this personally because it's not sort of like a clean pattern sort of thing. I was looking through this and I thought I would use this as a good example of what not to look for, because some of us, I've noticed a lot of us do cut corners when we're looking for these patterns, and it just comes to that point I was making before, where we are wanting that pattern to be a thing just so we can make a trade, just so we can enter a trade, so we can, potentially make some money. But if it's not a good trade, if it's not a high probability setup, there's no point in taking this, right? But initially, I did think it looked really good from a distance, but no, I wouldn't take this personally. Okay, the next example, we're going to look at GU. Let's look at GU. Let me have a look. I want to quickly answer the question about the 4-hour candle as well. So sometimes we have to wait for the 4-hour candle. What does this mean? So let's say, for example, let me quickly grab okay, there it is. So this is GU. Okay, I'm gonna do the 4-hour candle thing as well. Let's use this. Change that. Let's just delete this. You don't need that. Okay. This is just a quick example, guys. So again, would we trade this pattern? Let's have a look in the chart. So let me draw that back again. So the trend line, we've got your resistance line here. Interesting. So you would trade that. Why would you trade this specifically? So I've got 3 yeses in the chart for this. So 2 test points, 1, 2, and the resistance, you don't have the 3 test points on the support trend line. So we wouldn't trade this pattern. We wouldn't trade this at all, actually, even though it's a good sort of continuation there. And then let's move to, yeah, that's fine. It broke out upwards, but again, we do need, if we come back to this specific point, let me bring it back to the criteria. If we bring it back to this specific point, we do need this one. We do need the trend line support to be tested 3 times, right? And in this, it only got tested twice, barely got tested twice. So once it continued up, tested the resistance, came down, didn't quite test the support again, tested the resistance again here, and then tested that, and then came out. But more importantly, what we're looking at is we're looking for a clean pattern, right? That's not a clean pattern because the apex, the two lines are not meeting at the apex. Now I'm going to go on to show you what is a successful pattern. Okay, so EURUSD, and hopefully I can show you as well. So I've got two examples here. Let me drop down to that. So I've got this example here. Actually, that one's not the best. Okay. So for this pattern, but the reason this one is slightly different is because we do have the lines meeting at the apex. So if I just bring that up there. So we do have it meeting at the apex. We do have the touch points as well. And then we do have the breakout and the retest right there as well. Okay. So let me switch to the 4 hours. Let me switch to the 4 hours and then look for that. So with any trade, we're always looking for confirmations. We're always looking for the key levels. So for example, at this point, it would be 105,300. So let me quickly change that down to 300. Perfect. Okay, so let's say we establish this pattern on the 30-minute or the 1 hour. Okay, and then we switch to the 4 hour. Again, we've seen the testing points of the resistance and the support line. We've got those confirmations. So the resistance being tested twice and the support trend line being tested 3 times. Now all we're doing is we're looking for that breakout. Okay, so we've got the breakout. We're looking at the 4 hour. We got the 4 hour closure, right? So it closed up here. Okay, now what we're doing, so let me just double check that question. Okay, so we're waiting for that 4 hour to close, right? Once we've got that 4 hour closure, then we can drop down to the 1 hour and we can have a look at the information that's being provided with the price. The other thing we can do is drop down to the 15 minutes. Once we drop down to the 15-minute point, we can then look for that retest. So price closed at this point here. So it closed at 1.05386. That's the 4 hour closure. And then it came down and retested this point and then continued onto the upside. Okay. So that's essentially what it means to look for that 4 hour closure. Okay. So the 4 hour closure just doesn't just go for, key levels. If we combine it all, so if we combine the pattern with the key levels, with the higher time frame closure and continuation of the trend as well, it can make a very good combination. So again, you've got the pattern right underneath this key level. All you're waiting for is that breakout. You're checking the higher time frame. You're waiting for that closure, and then you can check the lower time frame for the retest. You can enter at this point here. So if we just set the entry, so we enter at the retest, let's say there, change that to green. So this is our entry point. Entry, okay. And then quick question for everyone to see if everybody's listening. Where do we set our stop loss for this pattern? Can anybody tell me where we set the stop loss for this pattern? So we set the stop loss under the recent swing low. So let's change that stop loss. Can anybody tell me how we calculate the take profit? What's the requirement to calculate the take profit? I should quickly switch. So the requirement to calculate the take profit is to measure from the lower point of the supporting trend line right here all the way to the resistance line. Okay, so that's about 46 pips right there. And then we project it from the entry point. So the entry point's here. Let me project that here. So it didn't quite get to 46 pips before it dropped. However, it did push up to 35 pips there. Okay. So let's look at the other example as well. Did have another example on here. Perfect. So we've got this example right here. Drop right there. The 1 hour. I just want to fix that. Okay. Perfect. So again, with this particular example, would we trade this example? Can anybody let me know in the chat if we would trade this example? No, perfect. Good. That's good. Yeah, so we would not trade this example. The reason being is because we sort of lose the point of the pattern at this point, right? So we need our resistance to be, the resistance to be straight, to be flat. So the push points are all on the same sort of price level. And then with the test points for the support trend line, we want a continuation to the upside. With this, it just kind of flat lines on them last three. So let me just point that out here. Perfect. So this point here. So we've got one there. And then you have this swing point here. And then this one here as well. So that kind of just nullifies the pattern. Because ideally you want these points to be on that trend line. Okay. And at least 3 of them minimum on that. Perfect. Does anybody have any questions so far? Exactly, and because it's a downtrend as well, we wouldn't be looking to trade that because it is on a downtrend right here. Does anybody have any other questions? So if you're asking in particular about this pattern, so if you're asking particularly about this pattern, with this, the reason it's not valid is because we kind of lose the upward momentum on these 2 points. That's why this is not valid. So if you're looking at it as a zone, so let's say, for example, let me just draw up a zone. So I need the channel, parallel channel. So if I was to draw up a zone from here to here, you still have that loss of momentum here, right? Okay, so this wouldn't be valid. Even if it was a zone, it would not be valid, right? You can have some leeway in terms of like the zone itself, but again, you have to stick to the 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 validation points that make the pattern what it is. And the previous pattern, yeah, I guess you could, like I said, this pattern I would deem to be valid because of that particular. But again, what we're looking at here in particular is we're looking at the price is continually pushing up anyway. That's what we're looking at there. Perfect. Someone asked how it is a downtrend. Okay. So if you go on the daily, you can see here that we're trending downwards. And how to establish that, you would look for these lower lows and these lower highs as well. But the particular pattern that we were looking at is a bullish continuation. So you did get that right. We wouldn't use that in the downward trend. Does anybody have any more questions about how that pattern works? I hope that makes sense for the 4-hour breakout and retest as well. And for the key levels also. So, yeah. We can try and look at another example. Let me see if. Let me drop down to the 1 hour. I can't really see much on Euro USD. This looks, there's that break there, which I don't really like. But try and look at a downward trend as well. So this looks pretty good for the downtrend. So let me just delete this point here, so everybody can see what the downtrend, the bearish continuation of this pattern is. So descending triangle. So again, same sort of concept. We're looking for the touch points, and we're looking for the resistance. Okay, so let's do this. So we're looking for that to trend downwards. And if we come across here, okay, let's use support. Okay, perfect. This is actually a lot better, actually. This is way better, this one. So we're in a downtrend. Again, the same points, the same criteria do come into effect when you're looking at the opposite. So a bearish continuation. So you're looking for the 3 testing points on the resistance, and then the 2 on the 3 on the support line. So again, vice versa would be the resistance. We're looking for the decrease in momentum, and then we're looking for the 2 touch points on that support, and then we have the break here. So if we look on the 15 minutes, let's see if we can look on the 15 minutes for this. So it was over here, there it is. So we don't really have the retest on this, on the 15 minutes here. You could look on the lower time frame to try and find it on the 1 minute. But right now, on the 15 minutes, we don't really have a retest. We just have that clear drop. But that's pretty good. That if you were looking to enter on a lower lot size, and then once you have the retest, you could re-enter on a bigger lot size, or you could just keep your your initial entry from that breakout. So like I said, there are 2 entry points. You can enter on the initial breakout or upon the retest, depending on how you trade. So again, like I said, I always like to look for that retest first in order to enter into this. Let me try and have a look on the 5 minutes to see if we can get a 5-minute retest. I don't think it's going to do it though, so let me see. Yeah, no, it's not going to do it. All right, that's fine. That's not a problem. Any questions so far regarding that pattern or how it works? On the bearish continuation? No more questions? That's fine. So with regards to the key level, sorry, Dev and Satnam do a really good session on Sundays. So if you join that session, they explain everything about key levels and how all of that works. So with this session, exclusively these sessions are more for the market geometry, so patterns, etc. And obviously we incorporate the other sort of confirmations as well, such as key levels. So again, I would join that session because they go more in depth on what key levels are. You can use Fibonacci as well. That's a good point. You can use Fibonacci as well. However, with the Fibonacci tool, with any sort of confirmation as well, you do want to make sure you don't have that bias. So when I was saying, when we were looking at this point here, even this was a good demonstration, but there was another one that I was looking at. You want to make sure that you don't have that bias. You want to make sure that you're not looking for a specific pattern without the validating the pattern with the criteria. So yeah, that's a good point. You can use the Fibonacci retracement tool for this. However, you do use the Fibonacci more for the harmonic patterns, not so much for the alternative patterns. You can use it for measurements with the pattern within the pattern itself. So, but yeah, one thing that I like to incorporate with this is key levels as well. But if I can't see, if it's not around a key level, more than likely it will be. But it's just another additional layer of another confirmation layer to make sure that you can get in, and it is a high probability setup as well. But yeah, guys, if nobody else has any more questions, I do appreciate you all for joining. Next session, we're going to be looking at the head and shoulders pattern. I really like the head and shoulders pattern. That's one of my favorite patterns for the alternative ones. That and the teacup pattern as well is really good. So yeah, I appreciate you all for joining. do feel free to leave feedback in your chat, in your WhatsApp groups. That'll be fantastic. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next session. Take care, guys.